This is One Sentence News, a daily podcast featuring 3 news stories with a sentence-long summary and 1 sentence of context apiece. I'm Colin Wright. This is a sponsored message. I've been using Anchor as my podcast host for a while now, and it's been a pleasure to use. Anchor offers benefits that most other hosts do not. It's free to use, but it also has a collection of tools that allow you to create a podcast completely within the Anchor website or smartphone app. They distribute your show to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all the other distribution channels without any additional effort on your part, and you can make money from your podcast without any minimum audience size. So you can use it as a more traditional podcast host like I do, but it's also got everything you need to start a podcast from scratch. If you're keen to give it a shot, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. It's Tuesday, January 17th, 2023. Let's talk about the news. From Axios, White House reveals additional classified material found at Biden's home. About 20 classified documents have been found at President Biden's home and one of his previous offices, which has resulted in an investigation by the Republican-run House of Representatives into the matter, and a whole lot of PR-related stumbling by Biden. This is being compared to the recent wave of revelations related to former President Trump keeping gobs of classified documents at his Mar-a-Lago club in Florida. And there are similarities, primarily that it's not okay to hold on to classified documents in this way, and that there are real concerns about espionage and bribery and all sorts of other things when these types of sensitive documents are not strictly controlled by officials who do that as a profession. But beyond that, these would seem to be fairly different cases, as Trump fought tooth and claw to keep anyone from taking the documents he was holding on to away, and denied over and over that he even had them, while Biden's team seems to have acted by the book when they discovered the documents, and then looked for more just in case after they did. Though there are still questions about why it took so long for word of this discovery to make it out to the press, alongside questions about his team's carelessness in this matter. All of which is to say, though this is probably not as big a deal as the Trump classified document narrative, it's not nothing, and it is very bad news for Biden in the court of public opinion, as this series of stories will almost certainly be tied into a noose by Republicans, who will do their best to keep it in the headlines as long as they can. From the New York Times, Sweden says it has uncovered a rare earth bonanza. A Swedish mining company announced last week that it has discovered the largest known rare earth metal deposit in Europe, in a far northern portion of the country within the Arctic Circle, which is good medium-term news for a continent keen to reduce its supply chain reliance on China. At the moment, China has by far the largest and most sophisticated rare earth mining and processing setup on the planet, which is uncomfortable for the rest of the world, as rare earths tend to be necessary for most modern hardware, from smartphones to electric vehicles, and the latter and other larger renewable energy-focused technologies like big batteries and wind turbines require a lot of these metals. So while this mine probably won't be operational for another 10 to 15 years, establishing this type of raw materials pipeline leading into the 2030s, when EVs and city-scale battery backups are expected to be even more in demand than they are today, is generally considered to be a smart investment. And from the Associated Press, teen's death brings toll in month of unrest in Peru to 49. The shooting death of a 16-year-old boy at a protest in the Peruvian region Puno has raised the overall death toll from recent protests to 49. These protesters oppose the new president, Dina Boluarte, and are demanding she step down, that Congress be dissolved, and that elections be held immediately. These demands have been backed by strikes, roadblocks, and acts of destruction across mostly but not exclusively rural parts of the country, where former President Castillo was most popular. And these protests are a response to Castillo's arrest and sentencing to 18 months in prison, following what seemed to be an attempted self-coup, during which Castillo attempted to dissolve Congress right before they were scheduled to vote to impeach him. Boluarte says she supports a plan to move the country's 2026 elections forward to 2024 and has supported investigations into whether security forces have acted with excessive force against protesters. If you're finding some value in One Sentence News, consider leaving a quick review wherever you get your podcasts and/or sharing the show with a friend. You can find out more about this show or subscribe to the email version at onesentencenews.com. And you can support this and other related projects, like the Let's Know Things and Brain Lenses podcasts, at understandery.com.